Hello, everyone, and welcome back to another episode of Black and Abroad, an interview series highlighting the lived experiences of Black expats around the world. I am Kendall Tyson, your host, licensed therapist, and a fellow Black expat. And we have another great episode in store for you today. So I would like to begin by welcoming our newest guest. I want you to say hello to Meckell. Hi, Meckell.
Peace. Thank you so much for having me, Kendall. Really an honor to be here.
I am so glad that you're here and that we've had an opportunity to connect. And I'm pretty sure that this is going to be the beginning of a great connection. So I just want to introduce you to everyone. Meckell, her pronouns are she, they, is a queer travel addict, digital nomad, and content creator living in Mexico City, Mexico. Through her travel brand, Travel Well with Meckell. Oh, I like that, really catchy. She creates content that inspires people to follow their dreams of entrepreneurship and or living abroad. In addition to inspiration, Meckell's channel provides tips, current events, and insightful information for people interested in traveling or starting a new life abroad. Meckell's travel brand was inspired by her own journey leaving the United States, which showed her what liberation could look like. And to follow Meckell's journey or to get inspiration, insights, and tips to living abroad, I want you to go ahead now, subscribe and check out their YouTube channel, Travel Well with Meckell. And I will definitely share more information of how you can connect with them on in the show notes at the end of the show. So I want to say welcome again, Meckell. How are you?
Thank you. Thank you. Just even listening to that, I'm like, yes, let's get into this conversation. I'm really excited. It's nice to
Yes.
talk to other Black expats and just know that this is a safe space where we're able to just share more information. So I'm feeling good. I'm excited to have this conversation.
Yeah. I'm so glad. You said one of my key words is safety. Yeah. To be able to share this journey that you're on in a safe, engaging, non-judgmental, collaborative space, I think means everything to people being able to see, like we, talked about before, that there's so much out there that's available to us that we may not know about. And if we don't share our stories, then we're going to leave it up to somebody else to do it. And of course, we know what that could potentially lead to. So, I think this platform gives us the opportunity to take the lead on letting the world take a really authentic look, at what it is to be a Black expat living their best life all over the world.
Absolutely. Yeah. And it is such a layered conversation when we talk about people migrating and moving and, entering into different cultures and that experience when many of us didn't grow up seeing that. Yeah. And so that's the other piece. Like if you're listening and you're thinking about it, you don't have to do this alone. Like there are folks out here already navigating that. So
exactly. That's one of the things that I just get so excited about is that there's so many people in all stages of life that are embarking on this journey that are either real OGs in the expat life or in a later season of life, but just starting. There's just so much opportunity out there, so much information, so many people like yourself and myself, and all the people that we've been able to connect with that are conduits of information. And, one of the questions I want to ask you is, who would you describe Meckell to be?
Who would I describe Meckell to be? It's interesting because I think the first word that comes up for me is dreamer. A dreamer, somebody who gives herself permission to dream her biggest dream, but always followed up with action. And I'll say this because I am a Taurus. I have a lot of Taurus on my chart and I have a lot of Capricorn on my chart. And I think those two things really embody who I am, or I rather embody what those things are, because it is this blend of like, yeah, I'm gonna dream my biggest dream. I'm gonna take care of myself. I'm gonna, reward myself. And also like I'm gonna do what I say I'm gonna do. And I think the more I've learned about that as I get older, the more I embrace that duality. And I think
Yeah.
that just really supports me in being able to trust myself.
Yes.
So
So
yeah, that's the first word that came up, which is interesting. So I'll say Meckell's a dreamer.
that's amazing. Dreamer and action,
Yep.
right? We definitely have to be able to put the work into the dream if we want to see it come to fruition. But I think that's as a people that we definitely have that innate ability to grow things out of nothing. And it benefits more than just ourselves. So it has a life of its own when we begin to live out our dreams.
Yeah,
So I really
absolutely.
appreciate that. I wonder, and these are organic conversations. Yes, I have questions because preparation is key.
Mm-hmm.
But I kind of like to follow where the conversation goes. And I'm just curious about well, before I even go there, share with the world where you are currently living your expat life.
Yes, I am in Mexico City, Mexico, the largest city in North America. I don't think a lot of people realize that at times.
Wait, really?
Yeah,
Oh,
it's bigger
wow.
than New
I
York
never knew
City.
that.
It's bigger than, yeah.
Oh, wow. I never knew that.
Yeah, I think a lot of people, like sometimes I'll say I live in Mexico City and people are like, in New Mexico? And I'm like, or they'll be like,
No,
oh,
honey.
a small town there. Like it is the largest city in North America. There's something like 21 million people in the metropolitan area, something like that. So
Wow.
it's big.
That's about the size of Beijing.
Okay, yeah.
Beijing has
That
about
makes
20 to 22 million people. Um, so how would you describe the city? Because Beijing is wide, but it's
Mhm,
also high because
mhm.
there's just so much. It's very mountainous where we are. So how would you describe Mexico City?
I would say similar, like it's wide and it can get tall in some areas.
Mhm.
Um, there's like Distrito Federal, which is the DF. It's like the kind of central part where there's a lot of people in here. So, during the weekdays, especially, there's a lot of hustle and bustle. But the thing that I really enjoy about Mexico City is that it is a very large city, but for some reason, it feels like a slower pace. Like
Mm,
people work hard and then they know how to enjoy community, take time off. It's a very walkable city. So people are walking, people are biking. There's a great transportation system. So you'll see, like on Sundays, which are my favorite days here, they'll shut some of the streets down. People are biking with their families. They're out just like enjoying sitting at cafes because it's Latin America, right? Like people are drinking
right.
coffee at 10 p.m. on Saturday
Right.
night. Like those things I really enjoy, that feeling of having access to all the big city things and also having this like other side of just enjoying life, taking it slow. Yeah, plus
Yeah.
amazing food, some of the best food to
Oh, of
me.
course. Authentic Mexican food.
Authentic Mexican food and some of the best, even like really good restaurants outside of Mexican cuisine here. Yeah, I'm really glad that this is the place that I've decided to spend some more extended time and like invest in as a community.
Wow. How long have you been there?
So I've been in Mexico since January 2021, and I landed in Mexico City July 2021. So I was initially traveling around a bit. My
Mhm.
intention, really, my first intention was to stay in Merida, which is on the Yucatan Peninsula. And I was there for about 2 months, and a friend invited me to one of these really good restaurants in Mexico City. And so I came here for a weekend. And once I booked that ticket, I was like, well, Meckell, you can work from anywhere. Like, why did you land in one place? If you can work from anywhere, just keep going, keep traveling throughout this beautiful country and learning more about it. So I went to a few different cities, Oaxaca City, Puerto Escondido, which is on the western coast, came back to Mexico City, and I just didn't want to leave. I was like, oh, I'll stay another month. Oh, I'll stay another month. And I was just like, just get an apartment here. Like you need to admit that you love it.
Yeah.
And yeah, that was the beginning.
That's so interesting. So I have a bit of a connection to Mexico City. My family, when I was younger, we used to go there in the summer times, and we've gone like, I can't remember how many times. It was more than a few. And I remember, and I was having this conversation with another guest, Adelia. I don't know if you all been able to connect or
Yeah,
not. Oh,
I
cool.
have. That
That's
is
cool.
awesome. Yeah.
I was telling her, like, my family and I, we would go to Mexico City in the summers, and I remember like the boxes of the different color chicle, and being able to buy like the authentic garments when I was little. It's just, it brings back so much nostalgia, to think about other people being able to create their own stories and experiences in places that have been a part of my childhood. Not that it's about me, but it feels some sort of a way for sure.
Yeah, that's one of the things I like. I know you say you're from Texas, and I my a lot of my family's in Louisiana and Las Vegas, and it's a short flight away. Like that part feels really accessible too, to get back when and if I
Yeah,
need to. So I enjoy
yeah.
that.
Yes, it's
Yeah,
very
that's so
good that it's
cute
not an
though.
18-hour flight. It's not an
Yeah.
18-hour flight from Beijing, which is a journey.
Yeah.
Um, so, can you share with us kind of like, I think you gave a little bit about your genesis to getting to Mexico City, but can you share with us, how did you get to the point to wanting to live an expat nomadic type of lifestyle? Share with us the genesis of that.
Yeah. I think for several years, had been back to this word dreamer. I think I had realized that there had to be something more to life. And I didn't travel internationally growing up. Really, I
Mm,
just started traveling internationally, aside from going to like Tijuana when I was growing up, when I was in my 30s.
mm,
And everything I was feeling about living in the United States, this rat race, just noticing what the path that people were like, this is what you do. Like, you get this good government job, you do that, you retire. And I was just like, no, there has to be more. So once I started traveling and seeing how different cultures were viewing the world, different ways that people were living out their dreams, different ways that people were navigating, I think I started giving myself permission to dream of that for the future, right? Like the far future.
yeah.
And I didn't at that time think that it could be a reality anytime soon. So I just kind of tucked it away. And honestly, when the pandemic began, I didn't know at that time that I would be moving less than a year later.
Mm,
But I think for many people, the pandemic shifted a lot that was happening in my life. And some of the big transitions that were happening for me in 2020, I was building my own business. At that time, I didn't know that was going to support me in bringing this dream to fruition. I was actually married when 2020 started. So I, throughout 2020, went through the process of divorce. And like many people, again, just the way that we started learning how to navigate the world differently. So, really becoming more friendly with technology and envisioning
yeah.
work in different ways, because I've worked one on one with people. And a lot of the work I was doing was like very much in person. So I think that created an opportunity for me to envision life and work differently. So all these things kind of came to a head. And there was a moment where, with so many changes, I was feeling really overwhelmed. And I was like, whoa, I have no idea, one, where the world is going to end up. I have no idea where I'm going to end up, what I really, really want. And I'm a spiritual person. So I was sitting at my altar, and Spirit was just like, everything that you have ever wanted could be on the other side of this. And I was like, oh, this could be an opportunity. This doesn't have to be a stressful, overwhelming thing. So it's like, well, what have I always wanted? What is that big dream? It's like, I could leave the United States. Like, I could build a life somewhere else or travel full time. And once that thought entered my head, it was a wrap. Again, going back to that, like the action, it was like, what steps do I need to take? Because I'm about to get out of here. And everything flowed from there. I left my job October 2020 and started my own business, full-time digital nomad, November 2020, and left the United States because I spent the end of 2020 with my family in Louisiana. So January 5th, actually, when I woke up the morning of January 6th, which was my first day waking up as an expat in the country of Mexico, that was the day the Capitol got stormed.
Insurrection, yes.
And I was like, if this is not the sign that I got out at a time when things were just crumbling. So yeah, that was my journey to Mexico.
Wow. Okay. Just to first off have the validation of, okay, this further proves why I've made the right decision choosing myself. It really sounds like I can see where the overwhelm came from, just listening to you describe all of the transitions taking place at one time. And sometimes I wonder, does it feel like the universe, or whatever, source of power you believe in, like conspiring against you to help you to engage in the shift that's about to take place in your life?
Yeah, and that's something I always have to try to come back to, right? Because there are times when things feel stressful. And I think with my human brain, sometimes I'm like, oh, like I wish I could go back to when felt more easeful or something like that. And in reality, had I not gone through all those things, I wouldn't be here right now. My life wouldn't have unfolded in the way that it has. So when I look back, as challenging as that time was, I'm just like, oh, I'm so full of gratitude because my life now compared to my life, y'all, when 2020 started, I was commuting to work in the Bay Area, or living in the Bay Area, commuting to work like an hour, 45 minutes on average a day. Wow. It was like, just feeling like I was in the rat race, just feeling like their life was almost muted in color. Mental health, which I know we'll talk more about, but my mental health was not doing well. Actually, I had a Black woman therapist at that time who really also supported me in like leaning into those things. She actually was living abroad. And so when I told her that my dream, she was like, girl, yes, like we're gonna get you there. I was like, this is why we need Black women therapists, because they always gonna be riding for you. So
listen, for sure. For sure. I can attest to that personally on both sides of the couch. Oh, it just brings joy. I just feel so joyful listening to you share that. And just being able to rise to the occasion and not be stumped by the fear that comes up with like, okay, so am I really going to do this? And I wonder, like, what did it take for you to kind of shift your perspective to see what was happening in your life, things unfolding as an opportunity and not like failure or disappointment? What kind of mental shift do you believe you had to make in order to move into that space?
That's a good question. I think, I believe in alignment. And I think when we are aligned in life, things are in flow, things feel good. We feel like we're on the path we're supposed to be. And there was nothing in my life at that time, at the start of 2020. I did really love the work I was doing, but I had been in that job 8 years. I knew I wanted something different. So there were several parts of my life that were just really misaligned. My relationship was not a healthy one. And so like just internally, I was feeling like this can't be it. This can't be it. I deserve more than this. And I think even though I couldn't imagine what could be on the other side, I think I was willing to take a risk because I knew that there had to be something better, right? Like my story I think there was a certain point before the pandemic where I was like, is this my story? Is this just how the rest of my life is going to unfold? And as soon as that little seed was planted, where I was like, no, there could be something better than this. And that opened up the floodgates, because I like, again, like brainstorming, dreaming, like, how you get in those modes where like you're planning a vacation or you're planning something really fun and you're just like, you can be up all night. So once I could start dreaming, like, what could it look like? I want to go here. And I was doing my research on YouTube and following all the people and looking at how people were living. So I was just like, that allowed me too to like see, wow, people are, telling their stories and they left and they're having this experience. Or like, I've met several people who went through divorces before they moved abroad and like reclaim their life for themselves. And so I think it started with that like seed being planted, but I didn't know. I really didn't know. So I really just had to trust that I would be guided to something that was better, that did feel better. And again, my life now compared to then, I feel so much more liberated. You used that word earlier. We talk about that word, comes up a lot in the Black Expat community, but I feel so much more like a liberated version of myself.
That's amazing. I really appreciate you sharing that. One of the things that I kept hearing that you didn't say, so the unspoken is just a willingness to try, right? Mm-hmm. There has to be a willingness to try, even though you don't know, even though there's uncertainty, even though this is different, you have to be willing. So there's a level of acceptance, well, actually a high level of acceptance that has to take place when something's ending in order for something else to be born. And I honestly hear that in every story that I hear. I always ask people, would you consider yourself a risk taker? And most people say, not really. I mean, I said it myself. But then when you think about it, think about all of the small risks, the larger ones that you've embarked upon to get you to this point in creating for yourself, being able to share your story with the world, helping other people transition into healthier phases of their lives. And I would say just living on purpose. You said something about being in alignment, being in alignment with what you want out of this world and honestly what you want to give to the world, and rediscovering who you are at this time and point in time. It takes a lot of guts. Is that the right word? I don't know.
It does.
This is not for the faint of heart.
Yeah. And when I talk to people about taking that leap, as I'll call it, mindset is a big part of it, because we'll see something that seems like a mountain and really we approach it and it's like a little bitty anthill, but it is. We just have to believe. And even like, sometimes you'll hear people say, if I could do it, you can do it. Like for real. I feel that way because it's like, I took one step. I take a second step. Like I would not have known from the time I took that first step that I was going to be here, even down to like wanting to stay in Mexico City. I thought I could just travel full time, which I do love traveling, but I was like, maybe I'll just travel full time, or maybe I'll be married, or like, I still didn't know exactly where I'll land. But it was like one step and then this step, and then I'll do some research and then I'll book my ticket, which that was probably the biggest step. Like when I booked that one-way ticket,
it's done.
That was a very affirming, but yeah, it's just the one step after another. And so those are the parts of me that are like, yeah, if I could do it, really you can. And I know sometimes people are like, no, I couldn't. And It's like we are one and the same. It's just that
Yeah.
mindset shift and just taking that first step that get the ball rolling.
Yeah. And there's so much information out there for people that are really interested in living this, particular type of life. I'll just go ahead and plug right now. Shar's app, Expat, is where we've been able to connect with so many other Black people of the diaspora that are living life on their terms in other places of the world. So if you're watching this and you haven't, download Shar's app, Expat. It is a great wealth of information and community.
It's
And
growing. The community is growing.
It is.
Fast. Yeah.
It is. And so I would like for you, to share with us, what do you believe has been one of the most impactful moments that you've experienced when you chose to, begin living abroad outside of your home country?
There's so many that flood in. Something that, and it's interesting because I don't think I knew I would talk about this, but I think it's on my heart right now, is community. I think that was something that I was struggling with before I left the United States. Is this like, what does building community as an adult look like? Is that just something that you gotta kind of leave behind because everybody's busy and has family and careers and stuff like that? But I have been able to meet really amazing human beings since being in Mexico City and Mexico period. But in particular, since actually moving to Mexico City. And I don't know if it's because, and I'm speaking of the expat community in particular, folks that are moving here, maybe they have a particular lens of the world or capacity for connection, but there have been such rich opportunities to develop and foster beautiful community. And there's a moment, because I'm a runner, I love running, I run half marathons, and I've been running almost 20 years. I can remember, yeah, I can remember like maybe 2 partners I've had in the past come to a race, maybe my sibling, never friends, anything like that. And I ran a half marathon in December here in Mexico City. And, I'm just like, yeah, I ran this race. Well, it's on, December 19th. And I had 3 different friends that somewhat knew each other, but like at 3 different times we're like, okay, where does the race end? Send me the location. What time are you gonna be there? I'll be there. Like I'll be there. And all 3 of them were at the finish line when I crossed with, and like, to me, that means so much. Just like that intention, even just like that unprompted asking, that was just like, wow, like I'm really able to be in a space where like I'm connecting with people in a way that feels deeper, in a way that feels more authentic and like more spacious. And I think that challenges me to want to be a better friend and community member and like invest in the folks that I want to build community with differently. And so I haven't even been in Mexico a 1.5 years, but there feels like so much potential for like a long-term, investment is the word that comes to mind, in community. Like I want to plant roots here. I want to be able to like, show up for people, throw parties, like, go to events. And there have been so many opportunities to connect that have been so dope. And the Black expat community here in particular is really dope. So yeah, I think that has been a really defining moment for me.
It's so interesting that you segued into community, because that's honestly one of the questions that I have as expats, creating community, chosen families is extremely important when it comes to being able to thrive. And I think you just gave a very vivid encounter and description of how your life has been enriched because of opening yourself up to new people, new experiences, and choosing a healthy group of individuals to help grow your life through. And I often find it's a necessity for us to be able to kind of look outside of ourselves when we are in these spaces. Because a lot of the places, well, I'll just speak for, living in Beijing, this isn't necessarily a Black person friendly country. So being able to identify spaces and people that feel like home is really important. How easy was it for you to be able to connect with individuals, like-minded people, folks that were seeking the same sort of, feeling of family and community?
So easy. I think it still blows
Wow.
my mind. I'm an introvert. I be in the house. Like I saw this meme and I think it is just so perfect. I'm for the sheets, not the streets. Okay.
I
but there
love it.
have been so many opportunities. One, like I think with Mexico, there have been some pretty well-defined Facebook groups, WhatsApp groups, things like that for folks who have moved here, and they're pretty active, especially now that we've kind of gotten through like quite a bit of the pandemic. So there are always events happening, things like that. So it has really started with like messaging people or being introduced to folks. Like I've had friends in the Bay that are like, hey, I have a friend who lives there. Like so many people have friends or family that they're like, yo, I know this person who's in Mexico. Y'all should connect. So it's been that like word of mouth and through some of the group chats that, I'll going back to this idea of taking a risk. I'll be like, sure, like I'll go out or I'll try to connect with folks. And at this point, I'm like, I really have to balance. Like I need that time to myself to recuperate, to just rest. But if I wanted to really be in these streets, there are a lot of opportunities to connect. And the people that I've been able to connect with, like there are so many dope folks doing amazing things. Again, this spaciousness. So people who are wanting to connect, people who have lifestyles that allow them to connect, or at least the life perspectives to value community. That was something I would notice in the States. It was like just perpetual scheduling, never seeing each other, never, and here people like, let's just take a walk, like let's grab a bite to eat. What are you doing today? So those sorts of connections have been really, really beautiful. And it was really easy to like find what I have found to be really authentic connections with folks. But again, I don't know if that's because of the type of people who are drawn to leaving and starting a life in a different place, or if I've just really been that lucky to find people that feel really aligned with the type of community that I want to build.
I would imagine it's a blend of both, right? Because obviously you all have to have something in common to be at the same space at the same time. Right. So there's a level of alignment there. And I would imagine that good energy attracts good energy. Because you can definitely feel when someone might not be for you, whether you know them or not. And I think the opposite is just as true, that you can feel a good presence and know, yeah, this could be something. So let me, be open. But I just, going back to, your word alignment, I really get the sense that a lot of people have left for similar reasons. Therefore, there's a level of alignment there. And several people are probably looking for something, healthier connections, deeper connections, a greater sense of community, more opportunities to be who they authentically are, and more welcoming spaces. So I don't think it would be that difficult to identify who those individuals might be when you all are kind of in the same state of mind to even go to the same places in the first place.
Yeah, word, that's real. I think I really enjoy hearing people's stories too.
Yeah.
Because there is something that you can connect with, right? Like when people are telling their story of how they recognize first that they may have wanted to leave and then like their journey, I could listen to those all day. Like I love hearing how people came to that place, and there's always something to resonate with. So
Yeah, for sure. Well, when you think about how, taking the leap to move abroad has changed your life, how do you believe that your perspective and your priorities have been shifted since making such a big move?
mm. I feel myself getting emotional when you ask that question.
Okay.
I think what comes up for me is that I have built a really solid trust with myself.
Mm,
And I think I'm able to see myself more, right? Like when you're creating a life, especially at a time when you don't know what's on the other side or it's very new. Um, I'm always intrigued by how things take shape, right? That was my thought when I went away to college. Like, I'm really intrigued to see the type of friends I make because I didn't grow up with them, where we don't come from the same community, like as a reflection of who I may be. Because I do think that, the people we're in community with can reflect us. So I think it was a really it's been a beautiful opportunity to like just get to fully see myself and to be really intentional about what I want in life. And I have the opportunity to wake up every day and ask myself that, I can
mhm.
check in. If there's any time I don't want to live in Mexico City, I can leave. If there's any time I want to do something differently, I have that freedom.
Yeah.
And yeah, it's really nice to reflect on that. But again, this idea of me being able to trust myself, that if there is something I want to change or something new I want to go for, to trust that I have, the capacity to bring that to fruition. And that's huge. Like that's huge. Yeah, thank you for asking that question, because I think
You're welcome.
that reflects too, again, this idea of what does it mean to be like Black and abroad. And as I name this idea of like trusting myself and like just really believing in my own power and capacity, I understand that just me being able to fully see that is a very different experience to
Mm,
what I may have had growing up as
mm.
a young Black femme in the United States. Like
Yeah,
we're not always able to see that for ourselves.
I know. Oh, wow. Thank you for sharing that. So I just hear empowerment,
Yeah.
right? When as a therapist, I always have this thing called like a word of the year. Like, what is the word that I'm going to be in alignment with throughout the year to help keep me focused on a healthier path? And my word for 2022 was intentional. And so to hear you say that, this is all an exercise in intentionality, because we know we can't just happen upon living abroad, especially not as Black people. There's a process to it. There is a thinking through. There is, again, a level of risk taking and a high degree of having to trust that you have everything within you to find success through this particular type of journey and experience, and that'll look different for everybody. So
Yeah.
yeah, I always get something different every time I ask a question. And it just gives me goosebumps sometimes. It's just an uncanny feeling to know that you are free to make decisions for yourself that impact your life in a good way. And that we're not reacting out of fear and survival, but it's because we're seeking something better and it's available, right? Like living in the US, we talk, like you said, the rat race. I'm trying to survive, I'm trying to make it, I'm trying to rise the ladder. And not that we don't have any of that as expats, but I think it's a lot more, what's the word that I'm looking for?
I feel
It's
like
something that
that's it. That is it. Like that is everything. And I don't feel like it's everything here. I don't feel like it's everything outside the United States. There's life outside of that.
Yes.
But in the US, it's that narrative is kind of pushed as like, this is life.
Yeah.
This is life. You gotta go to work. You gotta, have kids, get married, do X, Y, and Z. Like that's it.
Yeah. Yeah. And if you step outside of the norm, whatever the norm is, because I definitely don't believe in normal, yeah, you're seen a certain way or judged a certain way. Because, for instance, being a Black woman that's 40, I'm not married yet. Hopefully one day I will be. I don't have children yet. Hopefully one day I will. Just the way that the world looks at a woman like me isn't an easy thing to bear, which also has me at some point shifting the way I look at myself. And so working with a therapist, being a good community, being able to do things like this to help others have to amplify their voice, I think it's part of that healing process to where you get to reclaim your own narrative. What do you think?
Absolutely. I love that. I love that. And that is the power of storytelling,
Yeah.
being able to learn more about ourselves, our own story, reshape, retell those stories, and hear how other people are understanding their process and their story. Because I learn a lot when I hear from other folks about their experience and how they perceive things.
Yeah. So share with me, just to shift a little bit, all of this is mental health without actually talking about mental health. I'm interested to know, when you began to notice that there was so much converging on you before you made your, transition abroad, how would you describe your mental health during such a transitory phase in your life?
Yeah, I mean, at the start of 2020, I was depressed. I've been dealing with anxiety for quite a while as well. And when I was mentioning when you get in that excited phase to like plan what's coming up, like I think that process was really helping. Therapy was really helping. But I don't think anything compared to like actually taking that leap. And again, feeling a little emotional, but like I think my family's support was really helpful at that time as well, because I couldn't fully see what had happened to me in my last relationship. Like I think that part was continuing to shed and just unfolding all of the experience I was having in that last relationship. So like as I'm holding all those things, I'm taking this one step forward, two steps forward, and building my business and planning my move. I think it was my family really that was helping me to see the types of steps I was taking and like what the growth looked like. It's like my mom's like, oh my God, like, wow, it takes a lot of strength to very early in a marriage recognize that it's not healthy and like leave.
Oh, I'm so happy for your mom.
Proud of you. And like hearing people say things like that, where I was like, I'm in it, I'm just like navigating, swimming in the water.
Yeah.
So I hadn't really taken a pause to be like, wow. And I think only now, like I'll wake up almost every morning and I just look around and I'm like, I'm so thankful. Thank you so much. Like I'm just so grateful because this is my wildest dream in terms of like feeling good and being able to like just be present in that. That was kind of like the process. And I think what I've noticed, I don't have anxiety anymore. Like I'm such a less anxious person. I actually drink coffee. I couldn't even have like coffee, ice cream, or anything with caffeine when I lived in the US unless I was really tired, because it just amplified my anxiety.
Yeah, it exacerbates anxiety. Yeah.
Yeah. And since I've been here, I could drink coffee. I went through this typical Latin American phase where I was like drinking coffee at 8, 9, 10 p.m. And I was cool. And I was like, wow, it's really different when your system has a chance to calm down, when you're able to like be present in a different way and like care for yourself in a different way.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's something I noticed since I've been here.
That's amazing. I wonder, how do you think, what is it that you think your family notices about the change that you've undergone?
It's there's a few different ways. I mean, there's people actually naming what they're witnessing, which like, wow, live your best life. Like you're living your best life. You're taking care of yourself. You're like, yes, do it. Like live life on your own terms. There's a lot of people who are like, oh, I wish I would have, if I was younger, or if I didn't have kids. I hear that a lot too. Like, yeah,
Yeah.
you can do it, girl. Like do everything that you want to do. So I get a lot of supportive messages in that way. People that I haven't talked to in a while, like when we catch up, they're like, wow, you sound like you're doing so good. So I'll get like reflections like that. But then I think there's this other part of expanding what we think about potential lives looking like. Because again, I don't come from a family where people were traveling internationally when I was growing up, let alone moving internationally. So my mom came to visit Mexico City last July. And I think a lot of people, like her experience here, right? Having not really spent significant time in Mexico and having been, hearing some of the stereotypes that we get in the United States about Mexico. It was when she landed here that she was like, oh, like she got it,
Yeah. Now I see.
She's like, and we went biking on Sunday, like we're walking to the store, like all these things that really define the quality of life that I have here. And she was like, oh, I feel so good. Like even her reflecting, like, damn, I feel good. Like I'm just like really
Yes.
flowing, like people are so nice. And so everyone who's come to visit from my family, and I'm blessed to say that there are many people who have come to visit, they're always just in awe of like, oh, I get it. Like I
Yeah.
get to see that there's a different way that people can live, that people are living, that you can experience life. And so I love that too, because then that's expanding not only how people see me, but like with this greater context of like, okay, like there is something different that's happening. And yeah,
Yeah.
it's beautiful.
It sounds beautiful. I wonder when you think about like tradition, when you think about stories passed down through your family, friends, circles, when it comes to like mental health and prioritizing yourself, what have been some of, if you can recall, the messages that have been, that have journeyed down, and how do you think those messages and stories have impacted like your perception of what mental health is, what it isn't, and has that kind of influence like where you are at this stage in your life?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I mean, I'm both sides of my family, many generations are from rural Louisiana. And I think this is true for many people, but
I already know what you're gonna say, right?
like I grew up without mental health experiences being validated. It was
Yeah.
like, how can you prove to me that you really sad, you're not just sad, like
Right.
there was
Right.
nothing, even with language developing over the years and people like using language around depression, anxiety, stress, like things like that more. Yeah, it just really wasn't validated. And so if something's not validated or not seen or acknowledged, then you just think you're crazy. You just think you're different, you think you're the only one that's experiencing things in that way and don't know where to potentially turn for support because
Yeah.
there's nothing to be supported.
Yeah.
Really, I think it's interesting because my bachelor's is in psychology.
Mhm.
So there's this point in my life where I think I know I took a class in high school that was psychology, and I just loved it. And I think going on that path kind of helped me understand individually. I also think being in the education system, as much as I, have mixed feelings about higher education systems, I think that there was a certain way that language and resources and things were offered that just at least helped me to understand that there were resources and like validation.
Right.
But yeah, that definitely created and like fostered my willingness to hold everything in.
Yeah.
Yeah. And that's what I did until like the start of my like what I call my spiritual journey, when my career kind of took a different path, where I was severely depressed at that time because I had been holding so much in. I didn't have boundaries. Like there were so many things that were happening around my mental health. And I think that was the first time I like really, really intentionally sought out a therapist. And I think my first few sessions with the therapist, I just remember her saying like, how does anger feel? Like how does XYZ feel in your body? I'm like, what are you talking about? I don't have that. I never feel that.
She's lifting up that veil. It's like, what are you doing?
I don't experience that. And so it really was like working on acknowledging that. And the more I share that and my experience openly in my community and see my younger family members doing the same, because Gen Z if it's one thing,
Listen,
they're going to share about what's coming up. And those things have helped to shift at least people's perception. It's a slow change, but at least like it's more visible now for sure.
Yeah. Oh, I just really appreciate the fact that you gave yourself the gift of seeking external help when things get a bit too much. I think we have like because honestly what you shared is the story, not only my own, and my mom's a counselor, right? Right. I love you, mother. Of every guest that I've had, it was like mental health. Yeah. We wouldn't talk about no mental health. Growing up, we're trying to survive, right? We're trying to grow up. We're trying to get out. We're trying to succeed. And that looks very different for everyone. So having the resources and having the access really does open so many doors to being able to provide something for yourself that you may not have known is available to you. Yeah. And it just, again, goes back to like this feeling of emancipation. It's just a level of empowerment that you can give to yourself and others vicariously, I would imagine, that may not know that they can do it for themselves too. What was I just about to ask? I'm curious if you could talk to your younger self. I don't know why we asking all these therapy questions on this pod. I cannot help it. I cannot help it. Because somebody needs it, right? It just really unlocks something for someone. If you could talk to your younger self at that point where everything was just reaching ahead, like it was just too much, what would you say to her?
I don't want to be corny and be like, it gets better, but like,
I mean,
you have no idea.
There's no judgment here.
Yeah. I think it would be something like you have no idea how good things can get. Or like all those things that you have daydreams about, or, like keep doing that. Keep daydreaming about it. Keep like, like that is a valid form of affirming and like, because affirmations definitely helped me a lot at that time, but like hold on to those things. Don't lose those things, because I think it was not me, but the world and like cynicism that developed based on how I was engaging with the world, that were sending messages that like, this isn't possible. This is all that exists. And so I would say like, hold on to those daydreams. Like these things really can come to fruition, and trust yourself. There's something I think that, and I learned this in my professional life too, is like Black folks, but in particular Black women and femmes aren't affirmed enough. And like, there are so many things that are gifts really that we're holding that are taught to us as being weird or different, or like, just a pipe dream or something like that.
Yeah.
And what would the world look like if more of us, even if it was our future selves, were telling us, no, this ain't a pipe dream, baby girl. Like, hold on to it, because this really can be you.
Exactly.
Why not?
Yeah. Why not you? Why
Why
not me?
not you?
When you say that, I feel like it's saying those dreams are the seeds to your reality.
Yeah.
That's kind of what comes up for me as I hear you tell your younger self, to continue to dream, going back in alignment with who you say you are. Oh,
I
yeah.
always say I want to have the confidence of a mediocre white man, because them,
Baby, because they have it in spades.
because if they don't dream it, okay. So I want that.
And I want the validation as well from the world to be able to move into those spaces. Let's have equity in that regard for sure. What would you say when you think about, how you care for yourself, how you engage with your mental health? What are some, things that you do at this liberated stage of your life to really practice self-care, prioritizing yourself, making your mental health like the number one thing? How do you take care of yourself?
Mm-hmm. I need grounding. And for me, especially when I was like traveling full time and didn't really have a space that was my own full time, that grounding felt even more important. So like my morning routine, which I had somewhat for some years, became vital. So that is true for me now. I need to start the morning with myself, with some reflection, some movement, and some space, And I think for me, because I have developed such a good trust with myself, I can figure out what that looks like day to day. Like, I'm not a routine oriented person at all. I can't do the same thing every day. The same time, I just can't. But I can wake up and say, like, what do I need right now? And like really check in. And that practice has been, I have more space for that practice, I think, since I have created a life abroad. I have more validation in that practice. And that has really been sustaining me. Like, what do I need? You want to bike today? I love biking. Like, one of my favorite things. Do you want to go get breakfast? Like, how do you want to start this day? So that's probably my number one kind of self-care tool right now.
I appreciate that. That's definitely one of the things that I tell people. It is, identifying in these moments, what do you need to be your best self in this particular moment, and shifting on a daily basis when you wake up, who do you want to be today? Right? And how do you want to be today? Really in alignment with your best hopes. What are your intentions? And working toward that throughout the day, just staying focused on, well, this is what I said, this was my intention for today. So when all of these other things pop up, because they will, whenever you're trying to be intentional, it's just, what kind of resolve do you have to stay the course, and be your truest self, I would imagine.
Absolutely. Yeah. And that's been important, because I think, especially as someone in the wellness world, we get these messages that are like, you got to do it this way. It has to be the same every day. It has to look
Not rigid.
Yeah. And that can be so stifling. And so I've really learned over the years to give some space to it, because then I can show up authentically for myself.
Right. I would have, and the rigid way of boom, 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 this way only, I really think it also doesn't leave space for more culturally influenced ways of healing, and engaging with yourself and with the world. So learning to engage in a way that what's the one of the new terms, decolonizing how you care for yourself. and doing what you can to dismantle those systems of oppression and things of that nature. So, yeah, I want to know, how was it starting your entrepreneur journey and moving? Well, did you start before you moved abroad? As you moved abroad, what did that look like?
Pretty much but maybe about a few months before I moved abroad, I like more fully launched. So I had 2 months while I was still in the United States to kind of work out any kinks and like things like that. So it feels like, and it still feels like I'm kind of in that process of building since it's been less than 2 years. But I'm constantly learning. It was a big learning process, constantly learning. And to use the decolonized word again, like that has been something that's been interesting as someone who is a digital nomad. My business is a holistic wellness business that centers Black women and femmes. So there's like something very, it's called revolutionary healing. So there's something revolutionary about just that, like what the work is. And then it's 100% virtual and, it's wellness oriented. So there are these different pockets of the reality of the business that I've been having to like shed because I am doing things differently than maybe people typically do. So there isn't always a blueprint. And there's so much that rubs, I think, against what a business is and what does it mean to be a business owner. And like from the beginning, I knew I didn't want to work 40-hour weeks.
Oh, no.
I didn't want full rosters of clients. I don't like routine. So I don't like doing the same thing every day at the same time or every week at the same time. So there were things I hadn't learned about myself that I validated from the beginning. And I think that made a big difference because I could have been like, no, you have to, if clients want, just like squeeze them in, get as many. I was turning people away from the beginning and didn't have a full, like, I don't want to work more than part-time. And so I think a lot of people initially didn't really understand that. But for me, I needed to have the space to be able to create it in a way that allowed me to have the life that I wanted to live.
Exactly. Because what sense would it make for you to create this thing that you don't want to engage with? Because it's essentially not living the value of what you're teaching. If you are operating in a way that does not, that makes it difficult for you, one, to enjoy the work that you're doing. I am not about this whole booked and busy at all. I want to be, what could you say? Reasonably booked, blessed, and healthy. And in alignment with my purpose. So it's just, again, blocking out the noise and identifying what does work for you in that sense. And how do you live? How are you a living embodiment of the values that you espouse? That is very difficult for people to do, myself included on some days, to be a living embodiment of the values that you espouse.
Yeah. Yeah, it's hard. You have to push back because people are telling you their opinions, especially with the business thing, right? Because there are all these business models that are like, no, you need to do it this way. This is how you validated being a business and X, Y, and Z. And so it is hard to push back. I think more space now in the pandemic world where we have seen such different types of businesses pop up, but like you really have to set some boundaries, push back and be like, no, I hear you. I understand that, but I'm gonna do things differently. So if you don't see that, then you can sit back and watch me.
Because I will, watch me work. I think as difficult and traumatic as the pandemic has been, and I'm not even gonna say has been, still is. Okay, just lost my earring. All right. It really shook the world, and I think has given people a new way of seeing how they live their life, and just gives you a greater appreciation for the things that really matter if you're open to learning those stories, those lessons. I don't know. It's just something about the forced stillness that we've had to engage in and the forced like recalibration of what life actually is that I wonder has given not only people the freedom to move abroad, but like just to have the audacity to start to do the thing that really makes you feel alive.
Yes, it's been beautiful to witness. I have this, like, I think there's been stages because you have the initial, like in March 2020, the way people were responding. Then you had the wave of like the Great Resignation that started. And it feels like there's a second kind of wave now of people who figured out what worked for them during the pandemic. And those things are not necessarily working anymore. So it feels like this second wave of people being like, oh, we're here. We're going to be here for a while.
Yes, it's not going away.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Like if I didn't like fully invest in my dreams before, this is now the time. So I feel like there are more people this time around that are like, no, I'm going to do it. Like,
right. There's a huge shift taking place and it's what would I say, reallocating the balance of power, I would say. And I get the sense that there's so many more people, like you said, that are empowered to step out and do the thing that they've been wanting to do for so long. And this is a ripe opportunity to do it.
Yeah.
For sure. Well, let me ask you, when it comes to, we have just a few more questions. When it comes to like your passions, I noticed you said that your business, Revolutionary Healing, you honestly just gave me the title of today's episode. Thank you. What are some things in addition to your business that you believe you're doing to make a positive impact in the communities that you reside within? Why do you find the work that you're doing important?
In the business or outside the business or both?
Either or both.
Well, it's interesting because I think there's a similarity there, because the first thing that came up for me is like be my authentic self, live my authentic life, validate myself, see myself, affirm. And that's like our motto is like, where Black women are seen, uplifted, and affirmed. And that's something I've learned throughout my career. Is like I mentioned earlier, that was something I noticed. A lot of Black women in particular just weren't really being seen. And I work with different genders in my practice, but all Black folks. And there is that piece too of like creating a space where folks are able to be seen, creating a space, everything from like the language on the site, the images on the site, social media, even like how we show up in session is like, I want people to be able to be their authentic selves. And I think there's some, there's times when I was like, is this enough? You know what I mean? Like that idea of I should offer this and this and this. And I have a lot of things in my tool belt. But the more I would sit with it, the more I was like, this is what's lacking, like folks really want to be heard. Like I worked at a university for 8 years. And I had the pleasure of working with a lot of the Black students. And, people would come in for certain things regarding their wellness. And once they sit down, like, how are you doing? Like, how are you really doing? Take your backpack off, you know what I mean? Like, are you thirsty? Are you hungry? And once folks were able to just like share what's coming up for them or reflect or like pause or breathe or, it was like this transformative experience. I started noticing that them coming into the office versus leaving. I'm like, wow, what just happened? Because I thought we was just, you know what I mean? Like, we're just like having a good connection,
Right.
What is the process of when we're in community and when we're seen and when we're like, just when we're held in that particular way, what can happen in our lives?
Yeah. Oh, yeah. it's like having the courage to branch out with that safety net, right? You know that there's somebody that's holding space for you no matter what might happen. And I think that gives people the opportunity to be a bit more free, be a bit more honest with themselves, because they know that it's doing so is not going to withdraw any type of love or safety or support. It's only going to make it that much stronger. Yeah. Right. So, yeah, I get the concept of being able to create safe spaces, because we've needed them for well, when you think about it, we've always done that for ourselves. And now I think we're just making it more widely available with the tools that we have to promote the messages, the communities, the resources.
Yeah, and I think, again, that decolonizing word, because there's so many messages that we're receiving that are telling us things have to look different, or our lives have to look different, or wellness has to look different. And so that's a part of that process too, is like, it's okay. Like this is like such a small example, but somebody had seen the nutritionist, and like, I think culturally and just in their life, they'd only eaten one meal a day. Right? And like the nutritionist was like trying to push them to have 3 meals a day, and it was like stressing them out. And so to even just be face to face with someone and be like, what works for you? You know what I mean? Like, yeah, how can we just understand that there are many different ways to take care of ourselves, and just seeing the relief, because we know intrinsically, and I think that's a part of the work too. With revolutionary healing, especially, is like, how do we reconnect with that inner wisdom and trust that? Because capitalistic society is going to tell us that we need to be moving in a particular way for the, you know, for money, for capitalism, for, you know, but what does it mean to like trust ourselves?
Yes, that's key. Also engaging in spaces that are culturally competent. I mean, I don't think that you can create a worthwhile enterprise or whatever it is that you're creating for the masses if there's not cultural competence, multicultural appreciation embedded into the work that you do. If you're really trying to serve your community, honestly, less of a Eurocentric perspective, which I find to be difficult to engage in where I am. Because although it's China, I work at a British international school, and I find myself in conflict a lot. I do. I'm trying not to go into a whole tangent about it, but I think it's why doing the work that I do, like therapy, mental health, workshops, all the stuff, giving people just an opportunity to see that there's a way to heal from all the things that you've been holding in, all the things that have happened to you or that you've done to yourself, that there's room to grow even in these difficult spaces. And as I say that out loud, I'm reminding myself as well, because sometimes it feels like, is it? But it really is.
Yeah.
Well, what are you most proud of at this phase of your life? And how do you think you've been able to tap into your gifts and your talents to hold space for others and create the opportunities for yourself that you have?
Most proud of not operating based off of what I perceive other people may be thinking or their potential judgments. My family, friends, community, you know, I really have reached a point in my life where that's not a concern. And I think just in operating in that way, I've seen my family, friends, and community trust me in a different way also. So that feels really good. And say the second part one more time.
The second part is definitely going to be more in alignment. Like, how do you believe you've tapped into the gifts that you have and your strengths to create something where you can hold space for other people, and create opportunities for others?
I'm going to bring it back to one of the first things I said, which is the dreaming, being able to give space to dream, biggest dream, not just for myself, but community and it's interesting because, I have the healing business, and then I do a lot of work with the content creation and supporting folks in bringing their dreams of living abroad to fruition. And in all of those things, I feel like there's the dream of liberation, right? Like there's this seeing that folks that hold the beautiful identity of Blackness can hold that in a way that, gives space for healing, in a way that gives space for a different type of life. And in order to create the framing for that, we have to, not just me, but like we have to be able to dream those. It's like almost like Afrofuturism, right? Like we're seeing a different reality that's possible and like leaning into that.
Yeah, that's cool. I don't even have a follow-up on that because it was right. I'm not even right, but yes, I fully accept and support that. So these are our last few questions. What would you say moving forward? What are the non-negotiables what are the non-negotiables in your life that will allow you to show up as your best self more consistently?
The non-negotiables. This is funny because I've had a lot of community time in the past few days, and I found myself saying, here are the things that are going to get me out of the house if you want to connect, like having this clarity on like, I'm not going to just be like, sure, yeah, we'll have it's like, no, if it's a big group of people, maybe, right? Like same day is enough, like unless I'm really, really, really feeling myself. I think, I don't know, it's really hard to say in terms of non-negotiables. I think there's a lot I'm open to, but if I'm taking care of myself in the ways that I need, then I'm a lot more in flow. Like if I know I have space in the mornings for myself, if I know I am like follow through with the things that I have like set intentions for, then I'm a lot more likely to like engage with folks. But I think non-negotiables are like the things that I'm not, like the toxic behaviors or like pressures that I just am not going to succumb to, right? Like I'm always going to hold that autonomy for myself. And I know myself and I trust myself, and I'm going to not just know and have that awareness, but communicate that too. And so I'm looking to be in community with people who can reciprocate those things. And when that's not reciprocated, I think that would be my non-negotiable, when I feel that my boundaries have been crossed, or like, like the respect's not there. Those are the things that are non-negotiables. But I think I am in this period where, even though I know I'm a lot more likely to connect if it's one or two people, small groups, or, I think I am creating more flexibility for how I show up, because I am in this place where I'm wanting to invest in community and like show up better for community and like really try to grow and deepen that. I'm really like show the relationships that I value, that I am valuing, and so I think there's some flexibility that I'm learning to lean into with those things. So it's the disrespect, and like those are the non-negotiables right now, where I don't have the capacity.
Yeah, I hear you. So then it's knowing what you need and operating fully in that on a daily basis, it sounds like.
Yeah.
Yeah. So we've come to kind of the conclusion of this part, but I want to know, is there anything else that you'd like to share with the world when it comes to the work that you're doing, how you're moving forward in your work?
I may have spoken to this, but I do think the content creation around and community building around Black expats, especially in Mexico, is like another stage of the healing work. That's what it feels like right now, because I am hearing stories on a day-to-day basis of people who are dreaming about leaving or having taken that leap. And so, there was a time when I was like, these are very different things happening in my life. But at this point, I'm like, no, this is all healing work. This is all Black liberation work. So, it's just a really beautiful continuation. And I don't know exactly where everything's unfolding to and how, what's to come. I think I'm in a place of expansion and transition, but it's just a beautiful journey. So I definitely invite folks to connect on that journey if people resonated. I am someone, especially right now in my life, I can say I do have the capacity, at least right now, to like continue community building. And that's something that I'm committed to. So yeah, folks are listening and, you already have a great podcast and you're thinking about every time you listen to this podcast, you're like, ooh, can I see myself? Can I, what is this? It's like, yes, truly, if I can, truly, if you can, like we invite you to dream your biggest dream and know that you have support and people who have done it. So
yes. Oh, I love that. We invite you to dream your biggest dream. And yes, you have support. So where can individuals, and we are going to include this in the show notes, where can individuals follow your journey, connect with you, work with you? How can they connect with you?
Yeah, you can follow my journey. The site I'm the most active on in terms of socials is YouTube, and it's Travel Well with Meckell. Live every Thursday, interviewing folks, hearing stories, similar to this. On Instagram, I reclaimed a handle that they had tried to take from me. So it's Travel Well with Meckell again, with an underscore at the end. Feel free to reach out and connect, or you can email me at hello@meckell.com.
We'll do so. So we like to ask, I like to ask some rapid round questions at the conclusion of our interview. They're always so fun, I think. So the first one would be, what's a word that you would use to describe yourself?
Joy.
And your smile says that very well, for sure. I
haven't always thought that, so I'm happy that came up. Yeah.
Exactly. So you can reclaim the joy that's always been there, for sure. What's one thing that you love about yourself?
I love, there's a lot that I love about myself. I love my curiosity. I'm very curious. I love like going down into rabbit holes online and researching stuff. I think that curiosity shows up a lot when I meet people. I like creating space for like the multitudes of experiences that folks have. So yeah.
That's interesting. Thank you. And so, obviously I want to ask some non-deep questions. What book are you reading right now?
Nothing really. I have two books that are half read. One is the Body Is Not an Apology that I started. I haven't finished because I need to like journal and deep dive in.
Sounds like something about trauma.
It's good. It's like really reframing how we see and envision bodies, our own bodies, but also just,
Right. Oh, that's cool. Okay. So what's your favorite country to visit? You said you traveled a lot.
It's been Mexico for a long time.
Really?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yes. Favorite city, London, England.
Okay.
So I, at some point, want to live, not at some point, let me claim this. My ideal, which I'm starting this year, is to live in London for 1 month a year and then be in Mexico City for the rest of the year.
Wow. God, it's really kind of putting a plan in place. When I do return to the States, I know it's possible, and I know I don't want to be in the US full time. What does it look like? The world is honestly our oyster.
Mhm.
And so my last question would be, do you have a favorite quote or inspiration or affirmation that you ascribe to that you'd like to share?
I do. Probably the one that always comes back time and time again is don't believe everything you think.
Yes.
Don't
For
believe
anxious people.
everything. Yeah, it's really, I mean, we can always be shedding because we're colonized too, right? Like I'm always trying to shed and rethink and understand differently my thought process, other people's,
Yeah.
so um, yeah, that gives so much space to just show up differently, show up better, a better version of myself.
Yeah.
Yeah, don't believe everything you think.
Fabulous. Our thoughts are not facts. They
Yes.
are not. They definitely lead us into some healing spaces. They could. I really want to say thank you, Meckell. You're actually the second person that I've interviewed from Louisiana.
Um,
My neighbor, and he'll be featured on season 2 as well. So he's Harry. His name is. He's in Belgium. So we're everywhere.
different. Yeah, we
Um,
are. Oh,
you
that's
belong everywhere,
dope.
people. That is the
We're probably
message.
cousins. Okay.
Listen, I believe in 6 degrees of separation for
Yeah.
sure. Especially since we're connecting and meeting people from all over the place. We might all be related in some way. Who
Yeah.
knows? I wouldn't be surprised if we were, but I
Well,
definitely
this
want to
was
say thank you.
fun.
It
Thank you.
was. I want to thank you for, sharing your journey, sharing your story with us. And I do hope that we are continue to connect. And for everyone that's watching, I want to say thank you for tuning into Black and Abroad once again and spending your time with us. I encourage you all to keep taking risks, keep impacting your communities, and make sure, above all, that you continue to prioritize your mental health. And we're asking for your support in sharing this episode. If we can, continue to uplift the work that we're all doing in our communities, we can continue to grow this message that we belong everywhere and that you have to prioritize your mental health. So please share, subscribe to both of our YouTube channels, and hopefully you can be a part of us continuing this very valiant mission that we're on.
Yeah.
And I just want to say once again, thank you, Meckell, and to everyone else, we're going to say peace. Bye, everyone.